And with that, friends, I'm going to now switch over to today's study of prayer and meditation, which we're covering ground. We're almost finished the Shema Israel. We're working through it. If you want to see these classes all together in one space, you'll find them in jewishgardens.com/spiritual. That's jewishgardens.com/spiritual, where you'll find these classes on prayer, starting from the very beginning. We now have covered 34 words in our Hebrew word diary. 34 words in a Hebrew word diary, and we are doing well. We're on our way to reach 100 words of the Hebrew word families to be able to identify the meaning of the Hebrew words. So if you have the prayer book, we're on page 42 in this prayer book. We're working through the Shema. If you don't have the prayer book, you can find it online by simply going to HebrewBooks.org/16091. That's HebrewBooks.org/16091. The Shema is on page 42, and right now we are exactly on page 42, 6 lines from the bottom, the second word of the line. 6 lines from the bottom, the second word of the line, which starts the second last sentence of the Shema. And you shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be for a reminder between your eyes. That is the second last sentence of the Shema, and we're focusing now on the word ukeshartam. I don't have my Hebrew word cards in front of me right now because we moved the shul. We opened the shul this past Shabbos and Yantiv. So for today, I'm going to just not go with the cards for right now, but you can use them in your RIIH cards. RIIH is the Read It in Hebrew app, which I encourage you to buy if you want to brush up or learn to read Hebrew. RIIH in the App Store or the Google Play Store. I think it's like $1.99. And if you get that app, you can see the Hebrew letters to practice them and get familiar with them. So the root of this word, of ukeshartam, remember we learned that the vav at the beginning of a word means and. Very important. The vav at the beginning of a word means and. The root of this word is the second, third, and fourth letter of this word. The kuf, the shin, and the resh. I'm going to show it to you right here. I'll put my finger on the word so you'll see it on the screen. There it is. Hopefully you can see it. Kuf, shin, resh, ukeshartam. Vav at the beginning means and the word is kuf, shin, and resh. So the kuf extends down below the line. It looks like crooked, curved, like an old man with a stick, with a cane that sticks down the line. That's why it's a kuf for cane or crooked. That's the kuf letter, which is curved and below the line. The shin, we said if the dot is on the right, that's a she. If the dot is on the left, that's a sin, because she is always right. And then the resh, we said, is the letter which has a rounded back of the head. Rounded for resh, as opposed to the similar letter, the dalet, that has a dent at the back of the head, which makes it a dalet. Dent at the back of the head makes it a dalet. Round at the back of the head makes it a resh. So kuf, shin, and resh. Very, very interesting. These 3 letters together form the word kesher. Kesher, which means to tie. Likshor, kesher, means to tie a knot. It also means to connect for obvious reasons. It means to connect. So when you make a connection, you are lekasher. For example, if you want to call someone, you want to phone someone, and you're lehit kasher, I'm going to connect with you. That is what it means to make a phone call. In English, the word phone, I don't know what the word phone even means. Maybe telephone means like a machine of communication, maybe, I don't know. But in Hebrew, lehit kasher is to connect. That's what it means to phone someone. Litzor kesher means to make a connection with someone. So in Hebrew, you say a telephone is a telephone, but that's just obviously an English word. There's no word in Hebrew for a telephone. But when you connect to the verb of telephoning someone is lahit kasher, is to connect. It's the same word as tying a knot, because in both cases you're connecting. And obviously it also means to communicate. Right? So an example of this word would be when Jacob is the father of the 12 tribes of Israel. And his son Joseph has disappeared for 22 years. He didn't know, but Joseph actually became the prime minister of Egypt in Genesis in the Torah. And what really happened was that the brothers of Joseph had sold him into a slave, but they told their father that Joseph was dead. Long story short, there's a famine in the land. The brothers go down to Egypt where there's plenty, and they try to find food. Joseph recognizes his brothers. They don't recognize him. So now he puts them to the test. He wants to know if they would treat him, if they truly regret what they did to Joseph, if they would do to his full brother Benjamin what they did to Joseph. So he asks them to bring Benjamin in an elaborate plan. Elaborate, beautiful story in Genesis. He asks them to bring Benjamin down to Egypt, and then he frames Benjamin as if he stole something, and he says, okay, Benjamin has to stay with me, and you guys go back to your father. And he wants to see, will the brothers abandon Benjamin like they abandoned Joseph, or will they fight for him? And that's exactly what happens in a very emotional episode. The brothers fight for Benjamin, and Joseph becomes very emotional. He breaks down, and he reveals himself to his brothers. At one point in that story, when Judah, the leader of the brothers of Israel, the leader of the 12 tribes and the ultimate father of King David, the king of the kings of Israel forever, Judah stands up before Joseph, and he speaks truth to power. He says, Joseph, he doesn't say Joseph, he says King. If you hold on to Benjamin, you're going to be killing his father, Jacob, because v'nafsho, his soul, we learned this in Hayom Yom earlier, nafsho means his soul. Nafsho keshura benafsho, his soul is bound with his soul. The son, Benjamin, is bound to Jacob, his father, and Jacob's soul is bound to Benjamin. If you keep Benjamin, you're going to be killing his father. And we can't let that happen. So we're going to fight for this kid. Right there, you see this word, v'nafsho keshura benafsho, which is why you'll be noticing this word kesher over and over and over in the Torah, many, many times over. It's a very beautiful word, which means to connect, to tie, or to communicate, or a knot. K-N-O-T, a knot. The meaning of the word, obviously, is to bind and connect. A fisherman's net is a bunch of strings tied together. That's why it's called the kesher dayagim. Right? Kesher dayagim. Kesher means a net, because it's not tied together. And a dayag is a fisherman. A dag, D-A-G, dag is a fish. Dayag is a fisherman, a man who fishes. So kesher dayagim is a fisherman's net because of the connection theme, or the knots, the strings tied together. Same thing you could say for a safety net. Safety net, not a fisherman's net, but a safety net. You know, when you catch the acrobats or something, it's called a safety net. Kesher hatzala. Kesher is a connection or a knot or a net of safety, a safety net. Kesher, same word. And one final example here is kesher mishpachti. Mishpacha, we know is family. Mishpacha, everybody knows that word, mishpacha. Kesher mishpachti means a family connection. So there's a family connection between me and him. Kesher mishpachti. We're related. Right? We're related because, again, it's all that theme of connection, of communication, of tying together, of being bound together. Kesher is connection. What's interesting, a meditation I'd like to share with you on this note is that the word kesher, in Hebrew, Aramaic is also a holy language. Aramaic is the language of the Talmud. It's very, very closely connected to Hebrew. Like Yiddish is to German, Aramaic is to Hebrew. It's like a derivative. It's a sister language. And there's very slight changes between Aramaic and Hebrew. So in Aramaic, you'll say, instead of kesher, you'll say ketel. Kuf taf resh, instead of kuf shin resh. It's the same word. In the Zohar, the book of the Kabbalah, it says like this: B'chad ketira it katarna. With one Not, we are knotted. Who? Three things are knotted together. Three entities are knotted together. Hashem, Israel, and the Torah are tied together in one knot. God, Israel, and the Torah. One knot. They're inseparable. God Almighty, His Torah, God and His wisdom are one. We've spoken about this many times in the study of Tanya. God and His wisdom are one and the same. But Israel is also part of that knot. You cannot differentiate between God, Israel, and the Torah. It's like the trifecta here, which kind of makes sense because it says in Genesis, Bereshit bara Elokim, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. The word in the beginning, Bereshit, that the Torah tells us, the commentaries explain to us, means in the beginning actually means the beginning was for two reasons. It was for two things. The beginning was for two. Creation was for two reasons. One was for Israel and one was for Torah. So God created the world for Israel and for Torah, which makes sense now. God, Israel, and Torah is all one knot tied together. So we are essentially bound with God, inherently bound to God. It's not that we are evil and we're trying to become good. We are inherently and by default we are good. And we always need to stay back in our default settings. That's why teshuvah doesn't mean to become something you're not. Teshuvah means returning to what you used to be. Not repenting to become something that you're not, but returning to what you naturally are. That's teshuvah. Because our natural setting is being bound with God, being bound with Torah. When a Jew is an atheist or thinks he's an atheist, he is betraying his natural organic state of being. When a Jew violates the Torah, God forbid, he is betraying his organic state of being. And that's a real powerful meditation. Kesher is a knot. We are knotted together with God. We're bound, unbreakable bond with God. And I want to take this meditation one step further by saying this. If you have a string that connects two entities, A and B. Let's say God and the Jewish people, right? We're bound with a string. And then, God forbid, you come in and you snip the string, you cut it. Now, God and the people of Israel or the Jew are separate. They separated. That's actually a terrible state of being. It's called karet. It's a heavenly punishment, which means limbo. To be cut off. To go to heaven is obviously a good thing. To go to purgatory is also a good thing because it's the cleansing process to prepare you to go to heaven. But if a person is such a sinner that God wants nothing to do with them, then God will cut him off. Cut him off and set him free. And now you're not bound up to anything. You're a lost soul. God forbid. When a person is cut, that means they're severed. The connection is being severed. We learned in Tanya that every time you do a sin, you're actually severing the natural organic connection with God. And if you sever too many of that, you're going to be lost. So you don't want to ever commit a sin because you're cutting. It's like a scuba diver or like the diver, the deep sea diver with the air pipes. Cutting those air pipes, you're going to suffocate. See, that's why you don't want to do too many sins. But what happens if you had a string that was severed and now you tie it together? You take the string itself and you tie it together. What now happens is that the string is shorter. The two entities are actually closer together than they were before. God and you maybe were 2 feet apart. But now that you cut the string and you tied it together, now you're only 1 foot apart because you used a full foot to tie the knot. So now you're actually closer as a result of the knot, the kesher that was tied as a result of your teshuvah. This is why it says the place where Bali Teshuvah stands is higher than where tzaddikim can ever reach. A person who sinned and then repented, returned to God, stands higher than the perfectly righteous people. Why? Because perfectly righteous is in a good place. But somebody who sinned and then fixed himself up again is actually much closer to God because the string is shorter. And that's again a meditation of the word kesher, of the word not, which I want you to think about when you see this word kesher, which means not, K-N-O-T, or connect, or tie, or communicate. There's one final thought I want to leave you with today before I call it a day, which is connected but not exactly the word kesher. If you rearrange the letters of this word kuf shin resh, in Hebrew the letters are mathematical values, so they actually can be interchanged. It's very, very interesting. You can't do that in English, but in the Holy Tongue you can do it because they're actually mathematical absolute values. So what you can do is if you take this first letter and put it second, you spell the word shin kuf resh, which spells lie. A lie, untruth. Emes is the truth, and sheker means a lie. Now, if you look at the anatomy of these letters, something very interesting happens. The shin, the kuf, and the resh, all of them stand on one foot. The shin is three legs that have 1 foot. The kuf also has 1 foot that hangs beneath the line. And the resh also has 1 foot. So shin, kuf, and resh are 3 letters. Lie, which stand on 1 foot, as opposed to sheker, which means a lie. The word emes means truth. And if you look at the anatomy of the word emes, every one of those letters stands not on 1 foot, but on 2 feet. The aleph has solid 2 feet. The mem has a very flat foot with 2 foundations. That's the mem. And the saf also has 2 feet. The message here is very powerful. The emes, the truth, always has a leg to stand on. But the sheker, a lie, will always fall over eventually. A lie will never be sustained. At some point, it's going to collapse. It's going to come crashing down. And that's represented by the very anatomy of the letters of the word lie, where each letter stands only on 1 foot, whereas in emes, truth, every letter stands on 2 feet. What is the connection between a lie and a knot? I'm not sure. Got to think about that one. Why is it that the lie and the knot have the same letters, kesher and sheker? There's got to be a connection. Maybe when you lie, you just get too complicated, like a knot. It's like you can't really get yourself out of it. It's like a knot. It's a mess. Maybe it's the negative side of the knot that is connected to the lie. Then when you lie, you're just getting yourself into a knot. Whereas when you say the truth, it's smooth. It's like a proper good string. It's easy peasy. There's no complication here. A knot is like a lie. That's probably what the message is here. So that's the word that we learned today, ukshartam, which is the first word of the penultimate verse of the Shema. We're getting close. We did word number 35 of our Hebrew word diary, which is kesher, kuf, shin, resh, which means to tie, a knot, to connect, or to communicate. And I encourage you very much to take your Hebrew words, write them on the front of an index card on the Hebrew, and the back should be the English, so that you can go through it many times in one day, before you exercise, after you exercise, before you eat dinner, after you eat dinner, before you go to sleep, after you wake up in the morning, so that way the repetition will literally burn those words into your brain, and you engrave them into your brain to the point that you'll be totally familiar with those words, and you'll be able to recognize them when you see them, so that when you walk into shul, when you open a prayer book, or when you see a street sign in Israel, you will be able to feel at home. You'll understand what the word means. You'll understand what the word means. You'll see the word. You'll be like, oh, I know exactly what that word means. It's not too late. You can do this. It's interesting. I was in Israel with our community a couple years ago, and I saw a street sign. I couldn't resist. I took a photo of it and I put it on Facebook. I think it was shared hundreds of times. It was a stop sign. In Israel, the stop signs are not the word stop, but a hand. Human hand. It's a red background and a white human hand that basically says, stay back. It's a sign. So somebody did graffiti on the hand and painted the tefillin knot on the hand, on the finger and on the hand. And I couldn't resist taking a picture. It was perfectly painted. Because only in Israel you'll see graffiti which looks like tefillin, right? And obviously the tefillin is what's being spoken about in this verse over here. And you shall tie them as a sign upon your hand, and they shall be a reminder between your eyes. This is a reference to the tefillin of the hand, of the arm, and the tefillin of the head, which is a biblical commandment. When you lay the tefillin, it brings extraordinary blessings upon you. It is compared to all of the Torah. As I mentioned recently, that when the Jewish people complain to God that they want to study Torah by day and by night, but they just don't have the time, God said, lay the mitzvah of tefillin, do the mitzvah of tefillin, and I will consider it as if you study Torah all day and all night. It takes just 5 minutes. To buy your own pair, friends, you can just buy it through the shul. You can buy your own pair of tefillin. Just go online and pick which pair of tefillin you want. Just go to jewishgardens.com/security. That's jewishgardens.com/security, and pick which pair of tefillin that you want, and we will have it ready for you within a few weeks to make sure that you can have your own pair of tefillin to fulfill this beautiful biblical mitzvah of the laying of the tefillin, the Ukashartam mitzvah. And with that, friends, we're going to call it a day. I want to thank you for joining me here this morning for Torah study. We'll be back tomorrow morning on Tuesday with the study of Tanya. We're doing chapter 30 of Tanya tomorrow. A few quick announcements today at 11:30. Corey Nadell is teaching Tehillim on Zoom. That's jewishgardens.com/Zoom. That's the book of Psalms, Hebrew reading, and Tehillim. Also, tonight at 8 o'clock, we have a very special presentation. We've been having the Scholar in Residence series for the past month or so. And tonight's Scholar in Residence is yours truly, is Chana and myself. We'll actually be guests of Chabad.org, which is the world's largest Jewish website. It's the world's largest Jewish website, Chabad.org. And we will be guests of Chabad.org tonight at 8 o'clock, where we will be interviewed on a theme called Debunking the Myths of Observant Jewish Life. Debunking the Myth of Orthodox Life. And it's an interview by the editor of Chabad.org, Chana Weisberg, who will be interviewing myself and Chana on Jewish family life, dating, intimacy, and raising children. Now, the link for that is chabad.org/Zoom. That's chabad.org/Zoom to join us tonight at 8 o'clock. We hope to see you there. Over and out, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. Shalom.